Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We're gonna pick up where we left off last time. Last time we were together, we wrestled the whole session in Matthew chapter 24. I don't know if we solved any major questions or issues, but hopefully we found something we can take away from it. This morning we are picking up in Matthew 25. My guess is we'll probably be there the whole time this morning. Just to refresh your memory, we are still in the last week of Jesus's life. We're going to be in the last week of Jesus's life way longer than that last week took. So we have seen Jesus enter the city on Palm Sunday. We've seen him clear out the temple on Monday. He's been teaching in the temple courts on Tuesday, and now on Tuesday evening, Jesus and the disciples have been making their way back from the city up the Mount of Olives to go back to Bethany for the evening. Last time, Jesus and the disciples were probably sitting on the side of the Mount of Olives, looking west towards Jerusalem, and having a fairly deep conversation about what the future of Jerusalem was going to be like, what the signs of the end and his return would look like. And we're still there on the side of the Mount of Olives in chapter 25.
Want to ask a question from
Yes.
last week, so it's out of my way. What in verse 15? It says, standing in the holy place, then it says, let the reader understand.
Okay, so that's just a little parenthetical thing that Matthew threw in there to aid in understanding what's going on. So one of the commentaries made some sort of a note about that. It would have, whatever it is that Matthew has just written down, might have been a little confusing to the original readers. And so he throws that in there like a little, it's like on a TV show when the actors look right at the camera, kind of break the fourth wall. That's kind of what Matthew is doing here. Been pointing his Jewish readers back to the book of Daniel is what Matthew seems to be highlighted there. Sorry, being a single parent this week with a 12-year-old who requires constant conversation. It's just anyway. So.
Did you say this was like Tuesday?
Yeah, this is probably like late Tuesday evening, right before bed, and which we don't often have a time and a date stamp, but by the time we get to the end of this chapter, there'll be one that we can kind of hang our hat on for a while. So I think this is probably late Tuesday night. All right. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells a couple of parables and gives another lesson that kind of goes along with what he's been saying in chapter 24. Um, it all kind of ties in together about the future and the end of things and the return of Jesus and all of that. Um, so let's take a look at Matthew 25:1. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." They replied, no. There may not be enough for both of us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the others also came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly, I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." Okay, you can see how this ties in with some of the same themes from the last chapter. Looking forward to the end and the return. There clearly is this recurring theme of preparation. In the Old Testament, God, Jehovah, the King, sometimes the Messiah are portrayed as a bridegroom. Some scholars got a little issue with this parable. They think that it's not genuine because it doesn't match anything else in the New Testament. Well, it doesn't have to. The Old Testament portrays God as the groom of a bride. The bride is the church. The bride is his people. This is not breaking lots of new territory. You can see that in Isaiah 54 and 62, Ezekiel 16 and Hosea 2. This is not a new image that Jesus is using. So here in this parable, Jesus is using the setting of a wedding banquet. We've seen a wedding banquet, a wedding invitation many times in the last several chapters. The banquet is something the invitations would be sent out long before. You'd have it in advance. You would wait for the announcement that the wedding is about to occur, and then you would come, and the wedding banquet would go on not just for an afternoon, but probably for a few days. In previous parables, people wouldn't come who'd been invited because they had other things that they thought were more important. So the invitation was extended to anybody who was willing to come. But when they did come, they needed to be ready. They needed to be dressed appropriately. This is sort of a similar thing. Here, Jesus talks about 10 young women who are all invited to come to this wedding banquet. 5 of them are planners and preparers. 5 of them are just living by the seat of their pants. They don't know when the wedding is going to begin, when the banquet's going to start, but they all go together. They go to the meeting place, and they're going to just camp out there until it's time for the banquet to begin. Well, it takes a long time. They brought, each of them has their little lamp with them, their oil lamp. It could be like a torch that's got a rag that's in it that is the wick. But you would have had to continue to keep putting oil on that so it didn't burn up the wick, and we needed to burn the oil. 5 of them bring along with them extras. In case their batteries go out, they've got extra batteries in their bag, essentially. 5 of them don't. They're just excited, and so they come. It takes so long that it's getting darker and darker. It's long into the night. The groom finally shows up, but the problem is that for half of this group, their lamps have been sort of going out, and they're in a panic because they can't see what's going on. Like, hey, give us some of your oil. And the 5 wise young women say, no, we prepared, we prepared for ourselves. We didn't bring enough for anybody else. Sorry, you're gonna have to go down and find somebody to sell you some oil. So those 5 take off to go find some oil so they can feed their lamps and be ready when the groom comes. And while they're out shopping, the bridegroom comes, takes the 5 good girls in with him to the banquet, and locks the door. When they finally come back, like, we're here now, let us in. No, you can't come in. I don't know who you are, so the door's locked and it's gonna stay that way. Preparation is the key to this parable. Knowing that that something important lies ahead and being prepared for it is sort of the point of the story. The hard part of the story is when it takes the groom forever to show up. He takes longer than anybody expected. Maybe there was traffic. Maybe he couldn't get his tuxedo right. We don't know what the issue is, but he can't show up in time. Not when everybody else thinks he is going to show up. Some people were prepared for that delay, and some people were not. Having enough oil is probably representative of being spiritually prepared. Jesus has done some important teaching. Those who are prepared are the ones who are listening to it. They've lived their lives in accordance with what he's taught. They've adopted those lessons as a part of their lives, and so they're going to be ready for his return. Running out of oil would represent being disobedient, not paying attention to the lessons that have been taught. And so I think the message is, if you're a Boy Scout, you know this too, always be prepared. You have to live ready at all times. Always be obedient to the teachings of Jesus. Probably there's another lesson that's maybe not as, I wouldn't say maybe not as obvious, but is equally true, that you can only prepare yourself. When it comes to following Jesus and being ready for his return, you can't get anybody else ready. It's all a personal thing. These chicks want somebody else to supply for them what they've not done. That's on you. We've taken care of our own issues. You should have taken care of your own. You cannot depend on somebody else to get you ready for Jesus' return. And maybe a third little lesson or observation is that you should not assume that there will be more time to prepare for Jesus. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you've got a day or a week or 10 years or 100 years. But you should not live putting things off till later. Robert.
So we can't prepare for others, but should we not help others see the need to prepare? And help them be prepared.
Yeah, and if I was gonna, make up my own little story to go along with this, when all 10 of these little chicks were leaving the sorority house, 5 of them were saying, "Hey, has everybody got their extra oil? Because we don't know how long it's gonna take." And the other 5 are busy worrying about their makeup and their hair, and do their shoes match their purse and all that kind of thing. "Oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We gotta go." They all know that the wedding is coming. They all know that they've been invited. They have received the invitation. They have not done anything to prepare themselves for the long term.
There's a lot of,
I believe you're right that while my salvation depends on two people in history. One is Jesus and the other one is me.
but there's a lot of people that don't know, they don't know what's coming, correct? Isn't that why we make disciples of the world?
That is true. And Jesus has talked about that, and will again in the future, about making sure that these disciples will go out into the world to make more disciples. But the specific point he's trying to make for them all right here on the side of the mountain is, you need to be ready at all times. When you are teaching and preaching, everybody needs to know that they need to live ready. You can't assume that you're going to have some more time to get your affairs in order, because you just don't ever know. Is there anything about this parable that strikes you? You have another question about?
Where did they find wise bridesmaids? Sorry.
Hopefully that did not get picked up on the recording. We'll just gloss right over that. All right.
It's
We may be done early today. All right, well, let's pick up then in verse 14. Again, or something like, to go along with that, in another way, it will be like a man going on a journey who called the servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one, he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, again, that's kind of the key here. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. "Master," he said, "you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained you 5 more." His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." The man with 2 bags of gold also came. "Master," he said, "you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I've gained 2 more. His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness." Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. "Master," he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid, and I went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you. The master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I'm guessing you know this one. Well, this is maybe one of the more familiar parables that Jesus teaches. We did cover a similar parable a few chapters back in Luke 19, but they are just different enough that most scholars assume that it's two separate events, two separate tellings with a similar story. There it was the king who gives money to all of his servants. He comes back and expects to find some. Here it's just three. It's various amounts of gold to three servants based on their ability. 5 bags, 2 bags, and 1 bag. A bag of gold that he's talking about would have been, as you would imagine, a fairly valuable commodity. One bag of gold, that the talent that it says that it is worth, dollar amount is probably hard to nail down, but it would have been something like 20 years' wages. So he's given 100 years worth of wages, 40 years worth of wages, and 20 years worth of wages to each one of these servants. This is a lot of money. This master is incredibly wealthy. And it would seem like these servants are not just like, this is the guy who scrubs the floor, this is the guy who mucks out the stall, and this is the gardener. That these are fairly responsible, heavily involved servants that have maybe displayed some special abilities. The master, Matthew says, entrusts them with his wealth. So he's giving them a portion of his wealth and is expecting a return. I'm giving this to you. You're in charge of it. You take care of it. You're going to be responsible for it. When I come back, let's see what you've done. And so Matthew says at once, as soon as the master gives the gifts, 2 of the servants go put the money to work. I don't know what that means. If they're buying shares of stock or they're purchasing property, we don't really know. It's probably not just that they're investing it and hoping to get a little interest back, but they're really putting it to work. And the thing is, there's no indication when the master's coming back. I'm giving it to you. Do something with it. When I come back, we'll talk. We'll set up accounts. Well, in this story again, Jesus says it takes the master a long time. There's a long time between his departure and his return. And as we've all probably heard many times, the first 2 servants double what they have been given. Goes from 5 to 10 and from 2 to 4. And because they have done so well, they've given 100% return. The master is ecstatic. and he blesses them, he rewards them. Like they're getting a promotion, essentially. They're getting a share of the master's happiness. They can take great joy and delight in what they've done. And they're going to have even more responsibility and power and authority that they've had before. Good job. Well done. Couldn't be more proud. Thank you so much for your faithful service. And then servant number 3 shows up with his toe in the dirt and is, not making eye contact with the master. I don't really want to be here. I don't want to talk to you about this, but I'm scared of you. And I was afraid that if I did something with the money and lost it, that I'd be in trouble. So I just have hidden it the whole time. Here's exactly what you gave to me. It is untouched, unused. It has not been a blessing to anybody else. It's not done anything. Here you go. That seems like it would be a safe position. I'm just going to give you back what you gave to me. But if I gave you $100 in 1985 and asked you to pay me back, and this week you gave me that $100 bill, I might be a little frustrated by that, because that $100 bill could have done a lot in the last 40 years. And so one of the things that I hadn't really paid too much attention to is what this third servant says about the reason that he hasn't done anything with it. Where does he put all the blame?
And the master.
Yeah. I don't know if that's gaslighting or blame shifting or whatever, but essentially he says, well, really, it's all your fault that I didn't do anything, because you're really bossy and really scary, and you shouldn't have given it to me. You knew. It was just trying to duck all responsibility for his failure. Speaking of a third. Now, I think I've probably heard 40 sermons on this passage in my life, at least. Lessons, sermons, Bible stories, everything. And it would seem like the sort of obvious low-hanging fruit of this parable is when God gives something to you, abilities, talents, gifts, there's an expectation that you will use those things for the benefit of him and for others. You need to do something with what you have been given, regardless of how much it is. I am glad that Jesus didn't try to make some kind of a point here that they were bickering amongst each other. Well, we got 5, but I only got 1. But that's not really this point of the story. They each were given an incredible gift. Years worth of wages. This is a powerful, big, generous thing. Here, do something with this. And so the easy application is whatever it is that God has given to us, whether we're killed with talent and ability and gifts, or if we just have a little bit, it doesn't really matter. We should be using whatever we've been given to make a real difference. It really does seem like the point of this parable is, as Jesus sits on the side of the hill that evening, disciples, regardless of how long it takes for the return, you need to stay busy You need to stay productive. You remain active until he returns.
That wasn't very much. But sure, the kids do. And it's really weird. No, one scope. Yeah, I got a 4-inch in fact, cut my elbow.
Did they relocate your nerve?
I think so. He told me he was gonna take the roof off. That's what he said. He says, let's blow the roof off, so I know cutting the top of it off. I don't know if you see from whatever at a line, they move the nerve up to the other side. Yeah. Oh,
Or one or the other.
I guess I probably couldn't tell from the pictures from your right window. I'm assuming.
You should be prepared because you never know what's going to happen. Whether you're 12 or 112, you should expect that things are your own responsibility. Your salvation is kind of up to you and Jesus, not anybody else. And you need to hang on to it. You need to be working it out every day. Jesus has called you to follow. He has given you his grace and forgiveness. And so we live our lives preparing ourselves for that return, being productive.
So is AJ getting close to meeting him, right?
So
That phone rings one more time. He'll be. Yes, Robert.
I just an observation. So Jesus is telling us, but he makes the master out to be kind of a butthead.
You think the master is unreasonable?
Well, the guy was afraid of him because he was a hard man, reaped where he did not sow, gathered where he scattered no seed. Is that a negative or is that
Okay, well,
there?
here's how I would see that. I don't believe that Jesus is necessarily making the point that God is the master like this, who is harsh and with wildly unfair expectations. I do think that this servant is using that as his excuse. The master in the parable doesn't say, I am this kind of master. What he says is, if you believe that this is the kind of guy that I was, then why, for Pete's sake, did you not do something about it? He doesn't actually say that he is that way. Now, I will go along a little bit to say that way too often we don't have a very high estimation of God's righteousness and holiness and purity. That we think that he is going to be like, this really cool uncle who kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Everything's going to be okay. The master, the king, our Father in heaven, does have incredibly high standards. There is an expectation that we will live holy, righteous, pure, godly lives. And I think that we should probably live a little, what's the right way to say that? A little more with that reality at the front of our minds than God is like Colonel Sanders and he's this sweet old Southern gentleman on a bench someplace. These servants all know the same master. They have been with him, they have seen him operate, they know what his expectations are. Whether servant number 3 is just making excuses, wildly exaggerating to try to get the blame off of himself, maybe trying to find a little bit of grace and wiggle room from the master. I don't really know. I don't believe that we should take away from this parable that God expects us to do way more than we're capable of. Let me think about that statement before I go on any further. He expects us to use what we've been given. He expects us to develop it, to do some good with it, to benefit others, to benefit his kingdom. That really is the expectation. It doesn't seem like that is an unrealistic or outlandish expectation.
True. The third servant was, I can't live up to that, so I'm not even gonna try.
Yeah, it does seem like there's a little defeatist attitude there. If I'm going to be in trouble, I might as well not even do anything.
The seal just.
Oh, lucky for him, it's not him. All right. So that's 2 parables. They're in the in the dusk on the side of the Mount of Olives. There's one more thing that happens in Matthew 25 that's not necessarily a parable, but it is an important teaching. So let's go on with verse 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, not if, when, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. Okay. Terrifying passage. I believe it's possible that our friends are going to be whipping around the back corners here. If somebody would like to grab that window before the mowers show up. The thing that kind of ties this to the last couple parables is the doing good until he returns theme. You know, you've got these bags of gold, do something with the gold and make more of it, be productive. And that's what carries over into this last lesson. I'll remind you that this is literally just days before his arrest and death. If this is Tuesday night before bed, on Thursday, he's going to have the Last Supper. He's going to be arrested. On Friday, he'll be killed. This is an important lesson. It's one of the last things that he will tell them that we get to see before he gets to the Last Supper. And I suppose if I'm going to look at this teaching and try to squish it down in the most manageable pieces that I can, I would have to say something like simple needs demand simple action. Simple needs demand simple action. We see someone hungry, and the righteous move, the godly move, the Christ-like move is to give them something to eat. If we see somebody who needs a drink, the right move is to give them a drink. If they're cold or naked, we give them clothes. If they are weak and sick, feeble, we try to help them find healing. If they're alone or in jail, we go to visit. It doesn't really seem like we could do much more elaborating there.
It seems pretty simple.
And this is not some sort of deeply symbolic, difficult to understand deal. This is really just basic. Food and drink, clothes and companionship are the needs that people have. And these deeds are supposed to be done for the least of these brothers of mine. Who are the least? Well, that's the least in significance. They're the least in importance. It really is anybody who is in need. They might not matter to anybody else in the world. The hungry and the naked and the dirty and the imprisoned may not matter to anybody else. But what Jesus says, that these are my brothers. This is my family. And they matter to me. So if they matter to me, that would matter to you. So take care of those needs. Now, it feels like just sort of a general application is okay here. Anybody who is sick, anybody who is hungry, anybody who is cold, anybody who is in jail. When we see those needs, we should do what we can to meet them. Some scholars think that maybe Jesus is pointing specifically at these brothers of mine. So he's maybe talking about the disciples. And so if anybody who's coming along later should happen to see the disciples, these apostles, in some kind of need, if they're taking care of the disciples, they're taking care of Jesus. Some of the commentators feel like, well, you can take that and apply it really to anybody who is carrying the message of the gospel into the future, whether it's a preacher or an evangelist, a missionary, any faithful disciple of Jesus. I suppose you can make that application if you want to, but I don't think it's necessary. Jesus had compassion on all kinds of people, Jew and Gentile, male and female, righteous, unrighteous. He met needs. And so it seems like that's something that we should be doing. It does kind of remind me a little bit. I don't know what kind of psychology or sociology classes you've had, but about 100 years ago, when I was in college and high school, we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What Abraham Maslow said is that every human being has needs, and they are in a hierarchy from most basic to I don't even know what the right word would be, a little less, maybe a little less tangible. And what he says is, and while this is not gospel information, I think it's still sort of helpful that you start out here at the bottom with your physiological needs, food, water, shelter, sleep, clothing, all of the basics. I mean, those are things, whether you live in Weber County, Utah, or the middle of the Sahara, or Outer Mongolia, or Paris, France, you have those same basic needs. Everybody's got to have food, water, shelter, sleep, to live. Then once those basic physical needs are met, then there is a need for safety. You have all those things and you would like to keep them for yourselves. So you collect them to yourself and you want to protect them and you want to protect yourself because you know that without those things, you're sunk. So you're looking for security and safety, which would include all kinds of things, just material, other material needs, material wealth, your financial security, some personal well-being. Then there is love and belonging. So you get all these things taken care of, and then you're looking for some social connection. You're looking for relationships, for intimacy, friendship, family. You want to have a sense of belonging. Do you care about this if you're starving to death?
Not really.
Maybe not too much. Okay. And then from love and belonging, it goes up to esteem. Self-esteem, confidence, achievement, recognition, respect. We want to have relationships with others, but we all do have some sort of a little higher need for somebody to go, hey, you did really well with that. That was a nice job. I really respect you for the decision that you've made. You've really come a long way. And then the last one are a big fancy thing, self-actualization, where because you've met all of these things, you've got some relationships, you realize you have some confidence that you have the ability then to take care of some of your own goals. You have a dream, and so you go to make that dream happen. You set a goal and you think, I'm enough to make this into a reality. Again, this is probably not gospel, but it seems to apply in most cultures, most societies. It's the same basic hierarchy. There was an elder in my first church. If I heard him say it once, I heard him say it 1,000 times. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You can preach the gospel at people all day long with perfect delivery, beautiful illustrations, but if they are hungry or cold or naked, if they don't feel like they're safe, some of those lessons won't matter because we haven't met the most basic needs. That's what Jesus's lesson here at the end of Matthew 25 sort of makes me remember. Is I really can't. I shouldn't expect that just giving the gospel message about Jesus to somebody is going to fix all of their problems just like that. Until with compassion, I take care of the thing that is the most obvious, like, they've got an open bleeding wound. Well, maybe rather than preaching at them, I should give them a bandage. They haven't eaten in weeks. Well, I'm going to pray for you. No, I'm not going to pray for you. I'm going to give you a sandwich. If you've done these things for the least of these people, you've done it for me. And so Jesus says, at some point there will be this division. I'm going to separate them out. We're going to put the sheep over on the right, and the goats are going to be over on the left. What did we say not long ago about sitting at the right hand? What's right always the symbol of?
And man, strength.
Power, strength, honor, responsibility. So the sheep are going to get called over to the honorable side at God's right hand because they have shown compassion, because they have served other people. They have put others' needs ahead of their own. That's the whole basis for the kingdom. These sheep are on the right. They have done some good with what God has given them, what he has entrusted them with, going back to the previous parable. And so they're going to be rewarded. The inheritance that has been prepared for them since the beginning, they're going to move into that. They're going to be sharing in the master's happiness and eternal joy. The goats, on the other hand, pushed over onto the left-hand side, have not been attentive. Whether they have been oblivious to the suffering of others just because they don't care, or because they're intensely selfish, it doesn't really matter. The point is that they have not done anything with what they've been given. They have not made a difference for anyone else. And so they are going to be banished from God's presence. They're going to be punished. They will not have to worry about being in God's presence ever again. Those who are loving and compassionate, who are using their God-given abilities for the benefit of others, will be blessed for eternity. Those who have turned a blind eye and a deaf ear will be punished forever. Jesus teaches that there is eternal punishment and eternal reward, at least right here in this parable. I would get less hung up on the fact that hell is the punishment than I would the fact that to be a part of the kingdom means that we always need to be aware of and responsive to the needs of others. Two most important commands: love God with everything you have, love your neighbor as yourself. Over and over again in the Bible, we see that loving others is the way that we show our love to God. You want to love God, you got to love his kids. You want to show me that you love me, you will take care of my kids in my absence. You'll make sure that they're okay. Same thing works that way in the kingdom. Okay. What do you think?
Did you say that commentators were, some commentators, when they use the word brothers, it's talking about a certain,
That is specifically referring to the disciples.
so there's, can I read this verse out of Hebrews?
Sure.
It says, for you sanctified, and those who are sanctified all have one source. That is why he is not ashamed to call them brothers. Does that speak against
It would.
that?
No, it probably falls in line that Jesus is going to call anybody a brother or a sister,
Right.
someone who is aligned with the kingdom. If you're following God, if you are yielding to his will for your life, Jesus is going to call you family. So if you needed to, you could make the smaller application, which is still pretty overwhelming, that you cannot let a Christian brother or sister be hungry, cold, naked, or alone. Because if you're a follower of Jesus, they're your family, and you got to take care of family. I think it probably goes beyond that, but at a minimum, that's true.
Well, that was my question, was is that going beyond just the Christian brothers?
I would be surprised that Jesus is trying to make the point that Christians should only take care of other Christians.
Right, that's what I was.
Because he said to spread it amongst everybody.
That was my thoughts also, that's.
What better way to get somebody's attention?
Live such good lives among the pagans. You know, that on the day that he returns, that they give glory to God. That doesn't mean that they'll just go, well, that was dude is a super Christian. That means that they've been so touched by the life that you've lived that they have come to be a believer themselves. Okay, we're going to stick a fork in it right here. Done. Before we get to Matthew 26, which is where things start getting really awful. I will warn you that in about 3 weeks, we will not meet because I'll be out of town on the 21st, something like that, 20th or 21st, whatever 2 weeks from today is. I'll be in Kentucky for a wedding, so we will not have Bible study that day. Okay. All right. Feel free to go back and listen to all that again. If you got any questions, let me know. Make a comment online. If you're one of the people who's watching who's never been here, I would love to know where you're watching from and what you think. Like it, follow it, subscribe to it. I appreciate it.